Hello and welcome to another 2-minute short on InDesign. In this tutorial we're going to be looking at creating a custom grid, not necessarily the one that you can use within InDesign, but actually making your own. So as an example of this, we're going to have our open document and we can see that we already have our margins set. And we want to go through and we want to add columns to the margin. So there's a couple of ways we can go and do this, and we're going to do this in the master pages. So again, to get to the master pages, we bring up our page panel and double click on the master. And once we have those, we can adjust the layout. And we can add columns right here if we want. So if we take a look, we're adding columns across the grid. Nice easy way to work for a vertical column. And again, we can adjust our gutter, the space between the columns, so we'll leave it at 1/8 for now. So as an example, we'll create this and we'll leave it for that. But now we also want to create one that goes horizontal across. And how do we do that? Well, there isn't really a setting to do that. So we could do it manually, and we can manually add a guide at any time, but just by dragging from the ruler and pulling down to the right measurement that we want. So if we wanted one at 3 inches, and we've just created a guide. Now, if we take a look, this guide is only good for this page because I've dragged it. When I created it, I pulled it down within the page. If I actually pulled it down on the outside of the page, we can see it now goes across the entire spread. So as an example, I'll put another one at 6 inches. And I'll take my first one and actually do the same thing and just leave it at 3 inches. And my final one at 9. So we have a rough guide going across, and we also have our vertical. Now, what if we want to turn those off and only see the margins? Well, if we go under our view menu, we can hide guides at any time. But if we see that, we hide everything. And maybe I don't really want to hide everything. So one of the things we can do is actually leave those ones there, or actually, sorry, get rid of those. I'm going to convert this back and just say, you know what, I only want the one. And I'm going to create my own. And there's a nice easy way. There are hundreds of different ways to do things in InDesign. But here's an example of one I use. So what I'm going to do is I create a layer. I'm going to call that one my grid. I'll close that up. And I'm going to create a text box going right across. I don't have to do the full height and width yet. Now I'm going to bring up the text frame options. So I click on it and I do Control B or Command B, and I get a text frame options. And I'm going to change the number of columns to 4, just like we had before. And I'm going to lower that to just 1/8 of an inch. I'm okay with that. And now I'm going to extend it right across to the bottom. And I'm going to copy it to the other side. So I click on it, I hold down my Alt key or my Option key, and I Shift drag to the other page. So I now have vertical grids. And when I want, I can actually turn those off at any time. Now, if I want to do the same thing for horizontal grids, I can do that. Again, I can just create a text box. And once I have it, I'll adjust it. This one, I'm going to go through and I'm going to rotate it. So if you see when I put my mouse on the corner, it turns into a levered mouse, or levered mouse, or however you want to say that. And I'm going to Shift rotate it to keep it on a 45-degree angle and then a 90-degree angle. I adjust it, and now I pick up my text frame options again, and I create 4 grids, and I want to put that at 1/8. And again, I just resize that to the same size. I Shift Option or Shift Alt drag. I now have 2 grids for my master page. I just go to my layer palette and I lock that. Now, when I go back to my page, I have on my page, and any new page I create, I'll have those grids. Now, the nice thing is, if I don't want to see them, I can just turn them off at any time. And yet, I still have my type safety, just to know that I'm working within this area of the book that I want to. So that is a very quick way on how to create grids using on the master pages. Let's say, for example, one quick item or one thing we would like to do is create picture boxes going across. And instead of having to draw 5 or 6 picture boxes, and you can see here I can't write on that layer. I have to go back to my working layer. And instead of having to try and figure this out and doing it this way, I can do it either by actually creating a box and saying, you know what, this is the width of my area and I only need it 1/4 the size because I want to use 4 of them. Well, all I have to do is actually take that measurement, the width of the box, and if I take a look at my reference point, I can adjust it to the left or right, bottom or top, and I say just divide this by 4. And it will automatically resize that. I can do the same thing if I were doing it to the right side. And there we have it. We're now using math, just typing in our calculations to say, give me 1/4 of this or 1/2 of this, however it is you want to do. But we have not made a grid of picture boxes, and that is what we're going to do in our next tutorial.